It's no secret that James Doakes never trusted Dexter. So today, we're going to take a look at every time Doakes suspected Dexter of being a serial killer, starting with the disappearance of a local drunk driver. One of the earliest sparks of James Doakes' suspicion of Dexter came in episode 2 of the first season, when a man named Matt Chambers, a repeat drunk driver who had caused multiple fatal accidents, always slipped through the cracks of the justice system. He lied, manipulated, and played the role of a victim to dodge accountability every time. Dexter immediately honed in on him as a target, watching Chambers with a fixation that went far beyond his professional duties as a blood spatter analyst. Doakes noticed this right away. While the rest of the department dismissed Chambers as just another low-life criminal, Doakes saw how Dexter lingered. He asked too many questions, stayed too close, and seemed personally invested. To Doakes, this was very unusual. Forensic analysts were supposed to stay in the background and collect evidence, but Dexter hovered like a hunter sizing up his prey. When Chambers suddenly disappeared, Doakes didn't believe it was coincidence. He didn't have evidence, but his guts told him Dexter was connected. He saw a pattern forming. Whenever Dexter showed interest in someone particularly vile, Doakes couldn't prove it, but he began to view Dexter as more than just the creepy lab guy. He suspected there was something far darker driving him. This moment planted one of the first seeds of real doubt in Doakes' mind. Unlike his colleagues, who found Dexter harmless, likable even, Doakes refused to buy his act. He didn't see an awkward analyst. He saw a man with secrets, a man who watched killers like Chambers not only with disgust, but with purpose. The Matt Chambers case may have ended with a closed file, but for Doakes, it opened the door to an obsession that would only grow stronger. When Jason Reich, an honor roll student and yearbook editor for a local high school, was found murdered, Doakes' suspicion of Dexter was laid bare yet again.
Swear to Christ, Morgan, after this case, I'm submitting your psychiatric evaluation.
While the other detectives processed the scene with professional frustration, Dexter examined it with a fascination, almost an excitement, dancing around recreating the spatter patterns without even reacting to the brutality of the crime itself. Dexter's reaction disturbed Doakes. He thought Dexter was too giddy about the entire situation. When he arrived on the scene, Doakes said he was going to have Dexter committed for psychological evaluation, and later, as Dexter looked down at the body smiling, Doakes asked him if the crime scene was arousing. Doakes knew that no normal person would react to murder with that level of excitement. Dexter deduced on the scene that the killer had experience. Doakes confronted Dexter in the office after they apprehended the perp, a young man named Jeremy Downs. Dexter knew that Jeremy was a killer and was planning to take him out himself, but the police got to him just as Dexter was about to. After Jeremy was in custody, Doakes called Dexter into the office to get the blood report, but when he got there, Doakes walked aggressively towards Dexter and said, "I'm on to you." He told Dexter that his instincts were dead on and remarked that they were always dead on when it came to killers, before asking him why that was. Of course, Doakes' own instincts were also dead on, and they told him yet again that Dexter was, as he often put it, a creep job. And as the Ice Truck Killer case. As season 1 ramped up, the Ice Truck Killer was upping his game by creating a crime scene designed he knew would jog Dexter's memory. Dexter was called in with the rest of Miami Metro to a room at the Marina View Hotel. Date eventually came by way of Lieutenant LaGuerta, who let everyone know that the procedure was successful and Angel would be okay. With that news, Dexter decided to take his leave. While almost no one else noticed him taking off, Doakes did. Dexter's detachment didn't sit right with James. He followed Dexter and stopped him in his tracks as he tried to slip out of the hospital.
What's wrong with you?
Doakes was even more suspicious then. He found Dexter's behavior odd and inappropriate for someone who just found out that their friend was going to live after a near-fatal attack. He caught Dexter in the hallway on his way to the elevator and questioned him as to why he was leaving at such a critical moment in Angel's recovery. The confrontation was tense and direct, with Doakes all but accusing Dexter of being indifferent to Angel's fate. He could tell that Dexter was unusually cold in a moment that should have had him relieved and celebrated everyone else. Doakes zeroed in on Dexter's lack of normal emotional response, seeing it not as composure, but as more evidence that he was something darker than anyone could imagine. Before you watch any further, I'm happy to finally announce that I'm releasing the first limited drop of my t-shirts. At the start, there are only 100 available, so make sure you buy them while you can at dtmerch.store. Enjoy the video. He got right up in Dexter's face, his aggression on full display at this point. He pushed Dexter against a wall with his hand remaining on his shoulder and asked if Angel's improving condition made him feel anything at all. Usually one to let Doakes' hostile behavior roll off his back, Dexter finally responded in kind. He told Doakes to take his fucking hand off him. Doakes said that his reaction confirmed what he always thought, but removed his hand and let Dexter go on about his way. But he wasn't going to let up. In fact, he was just getting started. As evidenced by the blood-filled hotel room and sickening crime scenes left all over Miami, the ice truck killer case was one of Miami Metro's most disturbing investigations. ITK had been leaving the bloodless, surgically dismembered bodies of sex workers all around, captivating the homicide department and unsettling the city. The killer, later revealed to be Rudy Cooper, aka Brian Moser, operated with a unique MO that set him apart from other killers the department apprehended. His murders weren't chaotic or impulsive, but instead methodical and deliberate, marked by a disturbing attempt at artistry. His victims were carefully selected, drained of blood, dismembered, and their severed body parts were staged publicly in grotesque displays. These crime scenes were taunting to police and seemed designed to attract attention, body parts left in areas where they would be quickly discovered. Unlike most killers who attempted to hide their crimes, the ice truck killer wanted his work to be seen, studied, and most importantly, recognized by Dexter. Again, the ice truck killer wasn't killing just for the pleasure of it. He was constructing a message for Dexter, his estranged younger brother, who was separated from him after they witnessed the brutal murder of mother. While Dexter was adopted and raised with the Morgan family, where he was given the code to help him channel his darker impulses for good, Brian grew up institutionalized, left to lean into his homicidal urges without restraint. The killings, with their meticulous staging and haunting dismemberments, were a twisted form of communication, meant to draw Dexter closer to the truth of his past, which everyone in his life, from Harry and Doris to Camilla, went out of their way to hide from him. Brian wanted to show Dexter that they were the same, bonded by blood and trauma, and that society's rules didn't have to apply to them. He was tired of Dexter living his fake life with who he saw as his fake sister. He wanted his brother back, and he wanted them to kill together whenever they wanted. The case reached its boiling point when Rudy abducted Deborah, who he had tricked into thinking he wanted to marry her. When she left to meet him one night for dinner, but didn't return to work, the homicide department scrambled to find her. They knew that she left to see Rudy, and they knew that the killer was obsessed with body parts, and later they discovered he was into prosthetics. They began to put the pieces together that Rudy was involved not only in her disappearance, but in Angel's attack, and was looking like the most probable suspect in the ice truck killer case as well. Maria and Doakes went to Dexter's apartment the next morning to ask him if he knew where Deb was and break the news to him that she was missing, that her boyfriend was probably a killer. Dexter pretended to be shocked at the news, but Doakes immediately told him to cut the crap. It's revealed that Dexter was a step ahead of the police in discovering that Rudy was Angel's attacker. He performed secret blood tests to confirm that it was Rudy, but hadn't told anyone else at the department. Doakes demanded Dexter tell him what else he knew, and when Dexter said that he didn't know anymore, Doakes called him a liar on the spot. He wasn't buying the act for a minute, as usual. Maria had taken a particular liking to Dexter and stopped Doakes from antagonizing Dexter any further in the moment, but he was never going to let Dexter off the hook, especially now Deb's life on. After Deb was kidnapped by Rudy, Dexter's instincts and fragmented childhood memories led him to the shipping yard where their mother had died. While the rest of Miami Metro were combing through official leads and tearing Rudy's apartment to shreds for clues, Dexter was piecing everything together, having figured it out that it was all an elaborately constructed message meant only for him. His repressed memories of being left in a pool of his mother's blood inside a shipping container returned after the hotel room crime scene, and they only developed further in the coming days. Dexter realized that if Rudy was forcing him to relive his origins, the most logical place for him to take Deb would be a shipping container in the yard where it all began. Following this hunch, Dexter slipped away from the investigation to hunt for Deb on his own terms, driven by both desperation to save her and an eerie sense of familiarity with Rudy. But Dexter wasn't the only one making making moves outside official channels. Sergeant Doakes, already convinced that Dexter was hiding something related to the case, tailed him all the way to the shipping yard. Seeing Dexter break off from the department's coordinated search, despite his own sister being the victim this time, Doakes followed, interpreting his behavior as suspicious and unreasonable. Dexter went directly to the shipping container that his mother was killed in, having found the box number in old news stories that covered the story at the time. But when he opened it, it was filled to the top with bananas. Visibly agitated, Doakes confronted Dexter on the spot,
Surprise,
demanding to know why he was there and how he could possibly think to look for his sister in a cargo box. The timing of Dexter's arrival, combined with his intense focus, only deepened Doakes' certainty that Dexter had an intimate connection to the ice truck killer's crimes. For Doakes, this wasn't just odd behavior, it was confirmation that Dexter was hiding his link to the ice truck killer, even if it meant his sister could die. Dexter tried to talk his way out of it, but Doakes wasn't having it. After a quippy remark about ordering furniture from Thailand, Doakes punched Dexter in the stomach and Dexter fought back, twisting Doakes' arm and forcing him against the wall of the cargo box. Who knows how far the altercation would have gone if it wasn't interrupted by a worker of the shipping yard, but Dexter's ability to defend himself against someone as strong as Doakes further confirmed Doakes' theory that he was a fraud. Dexter's strength proved that he wasn't just some lab geek. Lab geeks are normally not that strong or agile. Doakes was getting closer and closer to uncovering Dexter's secret, his instincts once again proving sharper than anyone else's in the department when it came to Dexter's darkness. And the clues of his deceit just kept pouring in. After Angel discovered Rudy's real name, Brian Moser, the department was able to search for any real estate properties in his name, which eventually led them to where he was holding Deb. They showed up and raided the place, guns drawn, prepared to take Brian out if it meant saving Deb's life. To their surprise, Dexter was already there. Brian brought him there with the intent of making Deb their first kill together. Even though anyone else on the table would have been tempting to Dexter, he could never hurt Deb. He couldn't say that he loved her then, but he told Brian that he was fond of her, a person Brian saw as his fake sister and an obstacle in the way of their lives as a killing pair. He knew that if Dexter could choose him over Deb, his darkness would be unleashed and they could go about killing with impunity, not having to adhere to Harry's code, which he saw as a lie and a charade. But Dexter wouldn't kill Deb, and he wouldn't let Brian do it either, and just as they started to fight, Miami Metro Police arrived at the scene. Doakes broke into the room just as Brian was getting away, and Dexter pointed him in the direction that his brother ran, never leaving Deb's side. After Deb was saved and being seen by paramedics, Maria and Doakes questioned Dexter about how he could have possibly gotten there before the police. Dexter explained that Brian called him and demanded he show up alone or he would kill Deb. Wanting to preserve his sister's life, he followed the instructions, and while that explanation seemed to be good enough for Maria, Doakes again was not buying it. He knew that Dexter was connected to Brian in a way that he wasn't letting on. If not for Deborah, Dexter could have been in a lot of trouble, but when she heard Doakes threatening her brother with immediate suspension and further investigation, she defended him, telling Doakes to back off her brother, calling him a hero. That worked in the moment, but James had no intention of backing off. In fact, by the end of the ice truck killer investigation, he was more determined than ever to get to the bottom of whatever Dexter was hiding. As season 1 ends, he is parked outside of Rita's house, stalking Dexter without even hiding it. Gearing up for one of the most intense showdowns of the series. Following the closing of the ice truck killer case, Doakes was determined to figure out what was really wrong with Dexter. He was following him around and never gave him a moment's rest. The first rule of Dexter's code dictates that he not get caught, so he was forced to begin behaving like a normal person until he could shake Doakes and get him off his trail. He started bowling with Angel's team to appear normal and give Doakes a whole lot of nothing to sink his teeth into. He figured if he appeared as regular as possible, Doakes would eventually lose interest in following him, and he could get back to his regular ritual. But Doakes wasn't going down easy. His suspicion of Dexter wasn't going to die out that easily. Instead, Doakes stayed on him, even going so far as to sit in the bowling alley and watch him play entire matches before he would let Dexter out of his sight. He knew Dexter's schedule to a T, right down to the evenings that he and Rita had pizza night with the kids. Dexter asked Doakes if he wanted to take a night off and asked why he continued to follow him. In response, he tells Dexter that he knew that Dexter was connected to the ice truck killer. He knew more than that, though. He let Dexter know that he was aware that all of his assets were in cash, that he wasn't a member of any special interest or alumni groups, and that he was top of his class in medical school. But he also knows, especially after their encounter at the shipping yard, that Dexter knew martial arts, but couldn't figure out why a nerd like Dexter would need to know jujitsu. Dexter explains it away as an easy college credit, but Doakes calls him a liar for that too. No matter what Dexter said, or how normal he tried to appear, Doakes was never going to believe any of it. His distrust of Dexter had grown beyond anything even remotely healthy. He was obsessed, studying his routine, looking into his college records, even watching his family. It was too much. Without knowing it, Doakes was on a collision course that would be his undoing, and Dexter was still a step ahead every single time. Dexter's Narcotics Anonymous cover story was born out of desperation, a convenient lie to explain his constant disappearances and secretive behavior, and how he was able to frame Rita's ex-husband Paul using heroin. Because of Paul, Rita had already struggled through years of being with an addict, so she readily believed Dexter when he told her that he had a drug problem. She encouraged him to start attending NA meetings, thinking it might bring them closer together and give their relationship a real chance and a fresh start. Doakes was still following Dexter everywhere, and eventually he found Dexter at an NA meeting. The heroin addiction story seemed to finally make something click. From the back of the room, Doakes watched as Dexter stood in detail about his cravings and urges and the struggle he had keeping them in check. To most people there, it sounded authentic, and even Doakes, as skeptical as he was, felt it explained a lot of Dexter's odd behavior. For once, the late nights, the evasiveness, and the emotionless way he carried himself could all be explained by the scars of addiction. Still, Doakes was never the type to take things at face value. One day when Dexter came into work looking particularly tired, he asked Deb if Dexter had fallen off the wagon. Deb's reaction caught him off guard. Instead of confirming the story or even showing concern, she laughed. The idea of Dexter hooked on any drug was absurd to her, so out of character that she brushed it off with a smirk and a sarcastic comment. She told Doakes flatly that her brother wasn't an addict and had never even smoked a cigarette. That moment flipped a switch in Doakes' head. If Deb thought the idea of Dexter having a drug problem was laughable, that meant Dexter hadn't confided in her, and he was likely not an addict at all. The story suddenly felt flimsy to just another lie Dexter told to stay under the radar. What began as an explanation Doakes could live with instantly unraveled with Deb's response. He walked away more certain than ever that Dexter was hiding something darker, something beyond drugs. The NA cover might have been clever enough to fool Rita and the people in the room, but not Doakes, not for too long anyway. He knew then that his instincts had been right all along. Dexter was lying again, and the truth would be much worse than a heroin addiction. After realizing that Dexter lied, he knew that he had to start tailing him again. He broke into Dexter's lab and went through the tapes he had of Harry speaking with Laura Moser. Doakes didn't know that Laura was Dexter's mother, but he knew that Dexter would only be listening to tapes that old if it had something to do with what he was hiding. He let Dexter know that Deb confirmed Dexter wasn't an addict. They had yet another tense standoff during which Dexter warned Doakes to back off, but that wasn't about to happen. Dexter went to LaGuerta to file a formal complaint for going through his things, threatening him and stalking him off the clock. LaGuerta got Dexter to hold off, but that did little to calm things down. Dexter went on the offense after that. First, he made it seem as if Doakes' obsession with him was distracting him from his work. He gave Doakes bad information about blood spatter on a case they were working together to make him appear incompetent and unprepared to handle his duties. Even LaGuerta was on his side. Enraged, Doakes lay in wait in Dexter's lab. When he confronted him, he told Dexter that he couldn't find any paper trail on his early years, indicating that he had been looking into Dexter through legal and illegal channels. But Dexter wasn't about to back back down. He told Doakes in no uncertain terms that he would always be one step ahead. Then he put his hands in his pockets and headbutted the sergeant so hard that Doakes went tumbling to the ground. Dexter strolled out of his lab at that point, and Doakes followed him, attacking him in the middle of the bullpen in front of everyone. Dexter played the part of the unsuspecting victim and let Doakes beat him up. After the team got Doakes off of him, LaGuerta suspended Doakes, putting him on unpaid administrative leave pending an internal affairs investigation. While Dexter may have thought this would get Doakes off his case once and for all, it actually only freed him up to follow even more closely. During his leave, Doakes broke into Dexter's apartment where he found the blood slides. Not evidence on their own, he thought he needed to get them analyzed and matched to the victims of the Bay Harbor butcher to really pin Dexter down. Before he was able to get them over to his contacts who could handle that, the FBI intercepted him and found the slides in Doakes' trunk. He looked like the obvious suspect in the BHB case, but Doakes knew it had to be Dexter, so he tailed him to the cabin in the woods where he had just killed Santos Jimenez, one of the men responsible for his mother's death. And as Dexter tossed the bags into the water, Doakes finally confronted him, gun at the ready. He knew then, without a shadow of a doubt, that Dexter was the Bay Harbor butcher. He tried to take him in, but even in handcuffs, Dexter was able to overpower Doakes, and the rest was history. Much like everyone after him who would suspect Dexter of being the Bay Harbor butcher, Doakes didn't make it out of his investigation alive. Dexter locked him away in the same cabin he killed Jimenez in, and though he only intended to frame Doakes as the butcher, not kill him, he never made it out of that cabin. Dexter's obsessive ex, Lila, eventually found the cabin he had been visiting and blew Doakes to bits to save Dexter. And with his death came the end of the Bay Harbor butcher investigation and the threat Doakes posed to Dexter. It was an unfair end, but one that cleared Dexter to refocus on his life, his family, and his routine. Nevertheless, Doakes had been right the entire time, and his relentless pursuit cost him his job, his friends, his reputation, and ultimately his life. Maybe some mysteries are better left unsolved. If you liked this deep dive, check out our video breaking down 107 facts about Dexter that you probably didn't know. Remember to like and subscribe, and thanks again for watching.